The Cowboys and Parsons conflict has been going on for a long time, and today we finally saw it get resolved. And that's with him going to the Packers in a trade for a couple first round picks and Kenny Clark. And from Jerry Jones calling Micah Parsons the wrong name multiple times.
Ever negotiated with. Michael Parson is as savvy and knowledgeable and understanding of his financial business relative to football as any player I've ever been around. Question in our mind that Michael could bring us a lot of resources on a trade. And I'm just going to give you this.
And I guess the final straw being Parsons laying on the training table during the preseason game. Jerry Jones said he wanted Micah Parsons to play on the franchise tag and that no team has offered him as much money to play football as he has, which is kind of a ridiculous statement considering he's not a free agent or anything. And it's just, he hasn't had that option to talk to other teams right now. So no other team has had the chance to do so. And since the start of the summer, there's been issues. We saw TJ Watt, Max Crosby, and Myles Garrett all getting new deals, definitely not helping the Cowboys in their journey to re-sign Parsons. And then officially on August 1st, the last time I actually uploaded, Parsons would request a trade from the Cowboys. Now, getting into the trade details, did the Cowboys get as bad of a return as people believe, or was it somewhat acceptable? And how did the Packers fare in this deal as well? Parsons was traded to the Packers for first-round picks in the next two drafts, and this is going to give them 4 first-round picks to work with over the next 2 seasons. They also got Kenny Clark in this deal for Micah Parsons, he's a pretty solid interior defensive lineman. He's definitely had a solid career, but of course he's nowhere close to the level of Parsons. And if we're going to compare this to a similar trade from a couple years ago, and by a couple years, I mean 7 years ago, Khalil Mack was traded from the Raiders to the Bears in 2018 for a 2019, 2020 first, and as well as a sixth in the 2019 draft and a third in 2020. And we're not going to look at what they did with these picks because it's the Raiders and we all know damn well they can't draft to save their lives or just even save their franchise. But at the time of this trade, Mack was coming off of 40 and a half sacks in his first 4 years, having a 15 sack season in the mix. Through Parsons' first 5 seasons, not 5, 4, he's had 52 and a half sacks and has definitely been a generational talent, and he has been above what Mack was in his early career. Now, if we're just going to go ahead and talk about how these two trades stack up, I'd say Kenny Clark would be worth that third and sixth round pick. I'd honestly say he's just a little more valuable than it, probably closer to worth like a second and like a fifth. That's just me saying that. I'd give him a little more credit than that later second day pick, along with just that kind of throwaway, just extra pick in there. But we're talking about a generational player here in Micah Parsons or Michael Person, whatever you want to call him, especially when you're the owner and you don't even know his name. But he's generational and he's a talent he's averaging over 10 sacks a season so far in his career. And this is with missing a game here and there due to injury. Of course, he's definitely not going for the Iron Man record of playing X amount of consecutive games or anything. But he's been so solid throughout his career and above solid, of course. He hasn't had a 15 sack season yet, like Khalil Mack did in those early years. But he's been so consistent with his play. And like I said, even though he's been missing a game here or there and stuff like that. So I think the Packers did great on this trade. Of course, Kenny Clark, that is a piece that's going to go missing. But those second round picks, not second, but those 2 first round picks over the next couple years. This is a Packers team that I do think can win the NFC North. I really think it's between them and the Lions this year. And I think that this definitely does improve their team. And we're looking at them as a team that's going to be finishing in the playoffs. They're going to be having those late, 20th something picks. And it's just not guaranteed for rookies to work out. I know it's something that is talked about a lot more in the NHL, but that's because the NHL's development system is definitely different. You're drafting players younger. So it's a little easier to trade away first round picks and say, they might not work out. But of course, not every NFL first rounder is working out, especially when you get later in the draft to those late 20s and stuff like that. So I think that they're going to be good picks for the Cowboys to try to flip 4 other players, which is what Jerry Jones said his intentions are, or he said that it's a possibility. He didn't necessarily say, oh, we're going to go out and do this straight up. But he said that it's something that they can do to trade for other Pro Bowl players, which you already had one of the best, youngest generational talents on your team. So I don't really get it from that standpoint. But like I was saying, the Packers are trading away two picks that aren't necessarily anything for them yet. And of course, they could have become something. But like I said, these picks, your picks aren't always working out. And you're getting a guaranteed generational player. And of course, you're giving up one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. But he is getting closer to 30. And Parsons, you're getting younger. You're getting a lot more talented. And this is just such a phenomenal trade for the Packers. I think it's hard to give them anything below an A. Of course, Kenny Clark has been with them for a bit, and he is still a loss of a player. It's not like he's nothing, but it's Micah Parsons who has just played at a phenomenal level through his career so far, like I said. And when you're looking at this from the Cowboys standpoint, I did start touching on it. Of course, you can try to flip these two first-round picks along with your own for, Pro Bowlers or whatever you'd like, or you can just try to draft with them. But I think you are better off flipping the Packers picks just because, like I said, they're going to be in the late 20s, and I think that there's players in the league that could help them now. My only issue is it's just, are the Cowboys truly contending right now? They did just trade away their best defensive player. Of course, they're going to have Dak Prescott back this year, who did miss time with injury last season. But I do think if we're just going to go ahead and give this trade a grade, and of course, trades aren't won by the grade they get at the time of the trade. I think we all know that. Of course, like the Russell Wilson trade a couple years ago probably would have gotten like, I don't know, the Broncos. The Broncos were seen as coming out on top of that when it happened. And of course, we know that that's not how it worked out. I do think this will be different though. And I wasn't even too high on the Russ trade when it happened. Now, I wasn't making content at that point, so of course I could just be lying and pulling that out my ass right now. But anyway, I would be giving the Cowboys, sorry, I shouldn't say that, but I would probably give the Cowboys a C on this trade just because you are getting these two first round picks, but you're giving up a generational player. It's really closer to a C minus in my opinion. And I think maybe if you can get an extra second round pick in there, then that's honestly what might make it into a C minus. But I think it has to be a D. I know I've just keep creeping down, but it has to be a D because of what you gave. And when it comes to the Packers, I think it's an A plus. I don't think you're giving up close to what you would think you'd have to for Michael Parsons. Of course, Micah Parsons, not Michael Parsons. I'm not Jerry Jones. But I do think that the Packers come out on top of this trade very easily. And Micah Parsons is just a phenomenal player that is going to help them make an extra push in the playoffs. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys want to come back for more content, and have a good one.